Hi, I'm Skating PJ, and this is Let's Talk About It, the Skate Ontario podcast, where we're going to get up close and personal with members of our skating family who have a connection to Ontario. So, let's talk about it. Hi, everybody, at Skating PJ. I am delighted today to be welcoming an old friend and a very special guest, Piper Gilles. Piper, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. You were my first interview. So yes, long friends.
Do you know what? Okay, so is that like, let me think, where are we at? 13 years ago or so?
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
Our first interview was at the Thornhill Arena upstairs.
Yep, I remember that. I remember that. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, that girl is gorgeous and a very talented skater. So we're going to go right back to the beginning. You are originally from the United States. You competed there. You come from a family of 5 children, and 3 of you were skaters, right? Your brother, your twin sister, and you. What did the other 2 do? Were they slackers?
No, it's funny. My sister kind of played tennis here and there a little bit, and then all of a sudden at high school decided that she wants to be like a really good tennis player, and she won state 2 years in a row.
Wow.
And then play at school for a few years, and then my other brother Kemper, like he just liked trying sports, but he liked golf. So nothing super competitive, but they all liked sports.
You say golf is not competitive, but that's a story for a different day.
Yeah.
So tell me, did you and your sister, your twin, get on the ice at the same time? I mean, I knew your mom loved your mom, Bonnie. Can you tell me about the beginning of skating for you?
I think it's the birth of my life, basically. So my brother, who's 6 years older than us, was always at the rink. So my sister and I, the moment we could walk, we were so intrigued on what the ice could do. So we were always on the ice with our shoes on. His friends were pushing us around. Like they used to put little tires on the cones. So we'd sit on them and his friends would push us around. So I think we were just, I don't know, we were always involved in something skating. And I think that's really what drew us to the ice. And then the moment I could get blades on my feet, it was like no stopping the 2 of us. Like it was drag us off the ice if you could. Like, you know, that's kind of how it started. And it was, I don't know, the whole family affair. Like we all did ice shows together, all 5 of us at one point, and then eventually,
wow,
like, let's just have the 3 skaters. It's too expensive.
It's enough. It's enough.
Yeah.
Now, Alexi, she ended up as junior national champion in the United States.
Yeah.
You really, I'm not aware of you as a single skater, but I was certainly aware of you as an ice dancer and as a young ice dancer. Did you ever single skate?
I did. I actually skated until I was about 13, and Tom Zakrychuk was my coach. I landed a double axel. I was trying triples.
Wow.
So I did all that, and my mom really wanted me to test out and just get all the way through senior and do it. And I knew that I was just going to be an ice dancer, and I fought my way to not do it because I was just like, ice dance is my thing. It's my calling. I don't want to do anything else. And eventually they just said, okay, you do what you do.
You do you, Piper. You do you. One of the things that maybe people don't realize, I mean, you know, you're Canadian national champion, you're a 2-time world medalist, you're an Olympian. I mean, Grand Prix final title. I mean, there are very few titles that have eluded you so far. But one of the things that is also of great interest to me is your not career, because I don't really know if it's a career yet, but certainly your passion for designing and your passion for art. You know, one time off the ice, you and I met each other at Jeff Dimitriou, who's a choreographer. He was having an art exhibit and you and I were there. So tell me about that artistic side.
I think I always knew I was an artist of some sort. You know, growing up, I was just always putting my hand in dance or drawing or really anything, and color really catches my eye, and I love the collaboration of color and how color can change on people and their skin and how their eyes reflect off of it. So everything design has just been an expression of who I am. And growing up with my mom was super creative. I think with 5 kids, you just have to be creative in how you get things done. And you know, so when we designed costumes, you know, we were constantly going through magazines, and it became this bonding thing that, you know, my mom and I had. And I think now when I continue to do design, it's always like a little thought of, oh, this is something I had seen with my mom, or, and it kind of fuels that creativity. I just feel like I feel better. I feel involved. I skate better when I feel like I've contributed to the concept and what we're creating. And I feel like it's a complete commitment thing when you are committed from the beginning all the way through the design, even if it's, you're skating, but still, I just feel like I don't know, I'm an artist through and through, whether I'm on the ice or off the ice. Like I'm currently studying at George Brown for interior design. So I have my hand a little bit in different parts of the creative aspect. So it's hard to manage it all, but eventually I'll be in some kind of design.
Now you and Carol, my good friend Carol Lane, whom I've known for a gazillion years. So Carol is very, very creative in her own way. Obviously, the choreography speaks for itself on the ice. But when you're talking about costumes and costume designing, first of all, does she throw some, like, give me one of your costumes that you loved? Like, just one of them. Let's talk about it.
Well, I mean, the Starry Night one was probably one of the easiest ones I did. I had a seamstress that I had worked with since I was 12 years old in Colorado do that one. Again, it's just having the years with someone that knows you, knows how you work and are committed to you. With Carol, it was pretty easy with that because we wanted something to go off the painting, but I like the painting is so detailed and it's so visually drawing that if we did something so flat, that it wouldn't draw the same way as the painting. So we incorporated horsehair and made a little bit more movement on top of like the stagnant dress that made it feel like it was popping out. Just like I feel like the Starry Night painting is when you look at it. So I think Carol really let me have kind of free reign on that. But other years she's like, okay, we're doing tango. I'm really feeling that we don't do black or we don't do this, or I don't know, she's been super open about things. Or she comes up with a costume and she's like, okay, I saw this on Pinterest. What do you think of that? I think that's kind of been our whole relationship, even if it's, choosing music, it's creating costumes, any concept. We're constantly shooting each other ideas and feeding off each other's energy. And I think that's what's been so unique about our relationship is that like, we're very open to each other's ideas and just listening. And, some of the best ideas just come when you can actually just fully be present in someone else's ideas and you can just kind of add your own spark from it.
And then how do you dress the man in this case, Paul Poirier, your dance partner? Does the dress come first and then you figure out how to complement it with his outfit or how does that work? I've always wondered.
Usually girls come first. It's kind of the easiest thing to have set in place. And then especially for male, female, male fashion's hard because it's been kind of the same since the beginning decades. It's hard to have involvement in the evolution of fashion, but Paul now over the years has had a little bit more involvement with what he wears. And I think that's been really cool about the last couple of years. It's like now Paul's starting to have a little bit of voice in, especially I think this year with some of the new stuff, I think he'll have a little bit more involvement with what he wears, which is exciting. But normally it comes girl first, boys. And you kind of want to complement colors. Like with Evita, we had a really beautiful red color. And what do you do with Paul? And so we went with having like a very different colored kind of army green.
Yeah.
That was I don't know, it wasn't our first choice, but it ended up being the right choice. And I think colors that complement him and complement the dress, because it needs to come together in the end. I think, especially with our Withering Heights program, like I felt the second half of the year, I felt that we were too similar. Like Paul and I both had the same kind of like ashy pink color. And I felt like it wasn't as striking having us being the same color. So eventually, I think it was 4 Continents or Worlds, we switched Paul to a gray, which made us have a little bit more contrast, which I think elevated the character because we needed that contrast. And I think it elevated. So I think that's the cool thing about design is making sure that the two of us are right to complement what we're trying to portray out on the ice. So
Let's talk about Wuthering Heights. Let's talk about winning the free dance at Worlds. Let's talk about the fact that I was at the Skate Ontario Provincial Championships and we were all huddled around a laptop watching you guys. So I know that particular small gold medal, because the ISU gives out medals for top 3 performances in both the short and the long programs of each of the disciplines. So tell me what that small medal meant to you.
I mean, I think it meant a lot. I think it felt like we finally did it, in our own way, in our own country, being able to celebrate the 13 years that Paul and I have been together, to be able to stand on the home ice and just kind of really take in what we had just created, I think was so unique. But it was nerve-wracking. I think going into that free dance, like, we may have looked super calm and collected, but I think internally we were both like, okay, like, let's
do this.
Let's, and the best part was that we got last. We got to skate last, and closed an event, and to skate like that, I think it's going to be memorable for us for the rest of our lives. But I feel like I haven't fully digested that moment yet. But in terms of like how I feel now, I'm just so proud, that every single person that, had part in our career, we're basically there. Our trainers are there, our physio was there, like our whole family was there. Like, it was
special.
Yeah. So it'll be a unique one in the memory books for sure.
Are there any competitions that come to mind that had a spark, that had a moment where you just said, I'm going to remember this one for whatever reason? It's not so much about the results as the experience. Is there anything that jumps to mind?
For sure, I think winning 4 continents was one that that's obviously up there because that was a championship we hadn't won yet. But for me, I still feel like Torino, the Grand Prix final, I think is probably one of the best competitions. And I will remember for their lifetime because we had, Nadia and Peter win as well. And we were, not often do we always get Carol and Uris at the same event. So be able to both stand on the podium and to both be able to celebrate with them, I think is something that for me will always be at the top of my books because, they deserve all the credit that they don't get, and I think in that moment, I feel like they really got to be proud of the work that they presented to the world. And, I think they were really celebrated, which makes me really happy for them.
We're talking about Nadia Baszynska and Peter Beaumont, training mates of yours. And they were junior Grand Prix final champions at the same time that you guys were senior Grand Prix final champions. So pretty exciting stuff. And they're a pretty remarkable team as well. Do you think that when you think of yourself and your own identity, do you say, I'm a skater? Or do you say, I'm an artist? What do you say about yourself? 3 words to describe yourself.
I'm a feeler.
Okay.
Necessarily, I'm an artist. I'm 100% a feeler. I go with how I feel. I move with how I feel. If I feel restricted, I skate that way. I go with the flow and I lead with my heart. I think that's really how I describe myself as a person, as an athlete, as a artist. I'm a complete feeler, and I wear myself on my sleeve for everyone to see. That's how I skate. That's how I live. And I think the people that know me really well know that.
Now, do you feel comfortable as a Canadian? Do you feel comfortable as somebody who is now rooted in Ontario? I mean, this is that you are certainly quintessentially Canadian. How does that feel?
I feel like I don't know anything else.
Okay.
I've been out of the US for, 13 years now. And, I own a house here. I pay my taxes here. I am everything in Ontario and Canada. I got married to a Canadian, so I'm very much deep rooted in Ontario and proud to be an Ontarian. I really don't know any different. And I think that's pretty special. And I don't know, the moment I moved here, everybody embraced me as their own. And I think if it was a different circumstances, maybe it would be different. But, I was welcomed with open arms. And, I haven't had to turn back because I've been, embraced here, and I love it.
We love you, Piper. That's what there is to it. We absolutely love you. So I want to turn the corner a little bit because, in 2024, there are going to be 3,000 women who will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer. This is a club that no one wants to belong to. Believe me, my mom had ovarian cancer. I've talked to Liz Manley, whose mom had ovarian cancer as well. You experienced ovarian cancer. I want to talk a little bit about not what it was like to have cancer, because I know that was really a shock, among other things. But how did that story start? I mean, I think that, there was some idea that maybe you had appendicitis, maybe it was a bit of everything. Talk to me a little bit about when and how.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it was kind of a secret. I think for a while. I started feeling symptoms at Skate Canada International in Mississauga.
Wow.
I started to feel like unwell. Like I just felt like right before the short dance, or the rhythm dance. I just got like super nauseous, and I was like, oh, I thought it was nerves. Like, like everybody does at competition, you kind of just have a weird stomach, right? So, but then I went to dinner with my sister and my dad, and I was like, I really don't feel good. So I kind of took some Tums, and, around the same time, right before the free dance, it started again. And I was like, this is really strange, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just really hungry. That's kind of how it felt, like extreme hunger, but nauseous. And I was like, okay, like maybe it's just
That's
nerves.
odd.
I'll just get through it, whatever. And then, we took some time, took a day or two after, and I would just, for the next 10 days after Skate Canada, just didn't feel well at all. And I think we had 4 weeks between Finlandia, or 3 weeks between Finlandia. I finally was like, I need to go to a walk-in clinic, because I was like, I don't know what this is. And then the guy was like, well, it could be like a cyst, because I was very much like, I feel the pain and the nausea feels from the left side. And I feel like a period cramp. And he was like, that you could just have a cyst. And he's like, I'm going to put you in for an ultrasound and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, okay, sure, I'll do that right away. But right away, I knew I had a 9-centimeter cyst. So, I ended up
8 centimeters, by the way, people, is like this big. It's not small.
It's large, and you're
like 4 inches.
Big. So yeah, it's like a clementine orange sort of size. So,
and this was attached to your ovary or inside the ovary?
It was attached to my ovary. And then, but I didn't know that there was a tumor at all. They just kind of did your basic ultrasound scan. I ended up seeing a specialist, and the specialist was like, well, I just got to let you know that there's a tumor attached to this cyst. I don't know what it is. And they were like, we're going to do some blood work too. So I said, okay, great. Right before I left for Finlandia, I got through the app of the hospital. I saw that my cancer antigens were through the roof. They were like 1,400. And your normal is like over, is probably cancer is like 35.
Yeah, I remember those numbers. Yep.
It's crazy. And to discover that through an app before I'm supposed to leave for a competition, and having my mom pass away from cancer, I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I called my husband, who I just got married to. We just bought a house. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to go to Finlandia knowing that I may have cancer? Like, am I supposed to tell Paul? So I actually kept it to myself, and I didn't tell my dad. I didn't tell Paul or Carol about my numbers, because I didn't want them to be more worried about my situation. But they knew that I was supposed to go in for surgery. The moment I landed back from Finlandia, I got a voice message saying, you've been booked for December 19th for surgery. So they all knew that I was going to go in for surgery to remove this cyst, but they didn't know that it was potentially cancerous, because my doctor said that it could just be because you have a tumor. Your body could just be saying something in your body that's wrong, but we can't tell you that it's cancer until we've taken it out of your body and done all the tests. So then, yeah, I think it was quite difficult to be able to put that in the back of your mind and then jump on another plane and go to the Grand Prix final, because I was also told that if I fall, I could also rupture that cyst and be worse for me.
Have all the goo going inside.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we don't know what it is. And of course, I kid you not, the first practice that Paul and I did at Grand Prix final, we had done a first, and it was our rhythm dance. And like right at the end, Paul and I just eat it. And I just stood up and I was like, oh my God, please, whatever's inside me, please. And I just got so scared. Like I went to Carol, I went to Eurus, and I cried on the bus back to the hotel because I was like, I'm so scared. I'm so scared. Like they basically were my glue. And they just kind of held my hand through it, and they just made me believe that like I was strong, I was capable. I had Paul, I had everybody, and internally I was like still freaking out. I can still like I'm getting like emotional about it. But yeah, so and then when I got home, I had to have the surgery, but I didn't know I was supposed to get my appendix out until like 30 minutes before I went in for surgery. They put me in a separate room because I had just come back from Italy, right? They're like, COVID.
Oh,
You
jeepers.
have to have your own room. And then the doctor comes in and she's like, I'm just gonna let you know that I'm gonna take out your appendix as well, because we don't know if whatever you had has spread, right? So they're like, most of the time, if it has, it would go to your appendix first, and so on and so forth.
And this is December 2022, correct?
December 2022. Yes, you're right. Or 2022.
Yeah.
So yeah, that, and then when I came out of surgery, when we pulled out of nationals, it was the easiest scapegoat was to say that my appendix had out, because I still didn't have the results of whether or not it was cancerous. And I found out it was cancerous on my birthday, which was right after nationals, which was lovely. Here's 31, you have cancer, by the way. So, it's a whirlwind, and that's the long story. But
now, were you in pain, Piper, when you were at Grand Prix final?
I was.
Or feeling unwell still?
I just was unwell. Like I was weak. I was not hungry. Like I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't have a lot of energy. So I really was doing bare minimum. I wasn't working out because I was told not to lift weights, just because, again, I didn't want to rupture what was inside of me. So I'm surprised that I managed. And I say Paul and I had trained so well in the off season that by the time we got to the program and to do the Grand Prix season, like we were so fit that the body just, and that's the thing. I think I just was like, all right, let the body do what it's supposed to do. And I think it led us all the way. And I laugh because I think Avita, what a program for my season. Like, this Avita got ill and the people loved her in the end. And then here I am. I'm like, oh my gosh, like such a tie to her.
So is there some, so you find out you have cancer. I want to just stop there for a second, because there may be a listener right now who's watching us, who's waiting for results. How did you cope with waiting for results?
I think I kept myself so goal orientated that it helped me not dwell on that result. My common goal was to get back on the ice, to be present with Paul, to get back for the World Championships, because that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
People were relying on me, and that in a way kept me so in blinder mode, and it kept me moving forward and not dwelling on the situation. I feel like this last year I had to kind of do a lot more soul searching and mental health stuff, because I suppressed it for such a long time through show season and all that kind of stuff, that finally when I stopped, I actually was like, wow, I realized I had gone through so much in that period of time that I really had to kind of take it apart and be like, okay, let's
process it. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Elite athletes are very able to separate their body from their mind, because that's how they get through it. You've got lots of pain, you've got lots of discomfort, even when a person is healthy, that you need to be able to sort of like, okay, I'm just going to put this over here for the moment, because really, I'm not going to deal with this right now. We'll just set it aside and I'll come back to you later. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's absolutely remarkable. And, I think that your story is something that can help people who live in what I call the land of what if. Yeah. Because what if will stall a lot of people. Uh-huh. So now you've got the diagnosis. Now what? Is there information? Are you just like, wow, what do I do now?
Really? I mean, for me, I got very lucky that they got everything out, that all I have to do. I mean, all I have to do is every 3 months I go in for blood work, I go in for ultrasound, I go in for checkups. Like that is, I'm very lucky that that is all that I have to do currently. But I find it's just like I have this opportunity now to be able to use my voice and speak about getting yourself checked, because again, I wouldn't know. And this is where I get a little frustrated, is that women's health is not talked about, and it has never been talked about in my skating community, in my social circle. It's always, you have a painful period, too bad, suck up, take an Advil, show up at the rink. I mean, the only time that I never come into the rink is if I have a period, because I get so ill, and I wish that I had, seen a doctor or spoken up about that sooner, because who knows, like maybe they would have caught this a lot sooner. But now I have the opportunity to speak to kids, to speak to women, say, hey, like, I've had conversations with my friends, and they're like, you need to go get checked, because that's not normal, whatever you're feeling. And that, I don't know, it's powerful in this kind of change of my mentality, and even the conversations that I can have with women, is that, like, use your voice because it's important. And I think that's something that I've learned throughout this process, is that your voice has value, and your health has value. And I think it's really important that, you don't put yourself aside, you put yourself forward. And that's a great life lesson. How to learn it the hard way, but
Well, it's funny that you talk about that, because my mom, who had a few different cancers, we used to talk about the lessons that cancer gave her. One of them was finding your voice, certainly. For her, one of them was just sort of saying, well, you know what? I get to do this because I feel like it, not in a selfish way, but just, no, I get to do this, whatever this is. Writing was one of those things for her. She never took the time to write it, and always wanted to be a writer. So are there any other sort of like surprising lessons that have come to you aside from finding your voice?
It was learning to trust people. I'm not trust people, but like trust that I love to do everything. And I find that, I was able to trust and rely on people to help me in these situations. And especially, like, I really had to learn to give up the reins on what I say, what I do, really, because again, you're an athlete, you want to push through anything, you want to push through pain. But my physio was really the person that was like, you can do 10 reps of this, or you can, and then she's the one that really, we brainstormed at one of our appointments that, maybe I should just say that I have, I had to get my appendix out, just things like that. I was really able to rely on people and listen to them and guide me through the situation. And I don't like to give up the reins that easy. And, people are there to help you. And I knew that before, and especially with my mom, you couldn't do everything. You needed a village to help you with this situation, but it just makes you appreciate those people a little bit more. Like the moments that you have with anyone and everyone, they just become a bit more fonder. And I don't know, you keep your people close, the ones that's in your village.
Well, and you also realize that you really aren't alone. And that you aren't valued just because you're a beautiful skater or an artist. You're valued because you're Piper.
Yeah.
And people want to nurture that. So speaking of nurturing that, because we've just got a few minutes left, I want to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial side. And thank you for sharing all this information. I mean, between the artistry and the cancer and everything else, you're fantastic. But let's talk about your entrepreneurial side. You are somebody who is a spokesperson. You're an influencer already. Tell me what that journey has been like, because you know what, 10 years ago, influencer didn't mean anything like it does today. So what are you enjoying about creating those partnerships?
I just, it's a piece of me, because you're using all these products in your daily life, and, and it's, why not share them with the people that are also like-minded, like you as an athlete, or also like fashion or like style, or, just, and also like fun things in life. I think, it took me a long time to really kind of get comfortable into sharing that part of my life. And it wasn't really until I met my husband that he was like, you can actually start to do some stuff with this. You already like to create things. You already like to play around with it. Like, why not reach out to brands and, see if they'd be interested in working with you. And I think really, again, I owe a lot to him, is that he's really helped me kind of, I don't know, learn to work outside of skating. And my agent, I love her, but I'm constantly sending her things because I cannot sit still. And maybe that's a fault of mine, but I love creating. I love trying to figure out ways to kind of push myself, and because skating isn't gonna be there forever. Like I need to find my voice somewhere else, and it's not going to be in just one thing, and I know that about myself. So if it's using my voice to help promote, the Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada or the Ovarian Cancer Canada, like I'm happy to help them. I'm happy. One day, I think eventually I want to have my own wine company that a percentage goes to cancer. Like I think there's a lot of things that I still want to accomplish. So I think doing social media and partnering with brands, it just gives me opportunity to learn and grow and figure out what I can do and help me when I move on from sport.
Social media is a very interesting thing. And this is my last question. Believe me, I won't continue torturing you, although I could talk to you all day long. So you grew up in an era where there wasn't social media, and then all of a sudden social media is everywhere. For me, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, or that's probably the best way to do it. There's some wonderful things about it, the way you can connect with people, but then there are also some other things about how detrimental it can be with some of the negativity. Where do you sit on all of that? And if, again, there's a young person here listening to this podcast, what are your strategies for dealing with the negativity?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really, and I still struggle with this, is that your self-worth isn't based off your social media. You know what I mean? That I really struggled with. I was like, well, people don't like whatever I've posted. Is that a me thing? Do they not like me? Is it not that? Social media is like a totally different robot, and it has nothing to do with you. And I think if you're choosing to be more of a social influencer, just find things that you are okay with sharing. You don't have to share your full self. It's okay to create a persona, in a sense, to protect yourself. But I also find it's a bit more freeing when you are a little bit more vulnerable. And I think people they're not as harsh when you are more vulnerable, but there are going to be haters. And that's the thing. And I think I learned that over time with all of the skating
stuff
growing up, like they say nasty things. I think everybody's going to have an opinion on you. And I think the most important thing for any skater or any athlete, on social media is just know your self-worth. Know that whatever people say is not a reflection of you. It is their own opinion. They could be a robot for all we know, just saying mean things. It's just find your people. Those are your people that are going to keep you grounded. Do social media because you love it. Like, make it a job, okay, but just don't get swept up in the self-worth and all that. Like, you are valuable, just as
regardless,
without a brand deal or any of that kind of stuff. So just don't get caught up in that.
You know what? I just had a thought, and my thought was the fact that you just said something about, create a persona or create your own space. And that's kind of what you did by saying, I had to have my appendix out. You created time for you to be able to release the information on your terms. And I think that being able to release information on one's own terms, that really is something that's very, very important. So one last thing. I want 3 pieces of advice for the little skaters in Ontario, the Little Skate Ontario skaters, or even the adult skaters, or even anybody who loves the sport like we do. 3 pieces of advice from Piper Gilles.
Okay. First piece of advice is remember that little girl the first time you went onto the ice, because that's the person that you need to carry throughout your whole skating career, because you love the sport. Like, remember the reason why you started. 2, again, never lose your personality. People try to mold you and put you into a box. Fight that box with every willpower that you have. Be yourself. Find yourself. And the sport will be more enjoyable and the journey will be better. 3, find the people in like your coaches, your support staff, your trainer, the people that make you feel good, because you're the people that are going to push you, on the days you don't want to, and be comfortable with people pushing you. Don't put your heels in, because it's easy to do that. Open yourself, but surround yourself with people that make you want to train and make you want to be better, because you, at the end of the day, you can't be the full champion. Your whole team is a champion. So find your village.
You know what? Team Piper, I'm with you all the way. I want to thank you so much for coming to Let's Talk About It. This has been fantastic. I wish you every success in whatever's coming up for you, 2024, 2025. Keep going, girl. Thank you again for joining me.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Let's Talk About It, the Skate Ontario podcast. Don't forget to follow us on social media. I'm at Skating PJ. Until next time, bye for now.